Welcome everybody back to Veil of Sound, and I'm very, very pleased to have somebody on the show who seems to be a little bit of a workaholic when looking at his vast oeuvre, uh, but who still takes his time to talk to us. So Kevin Hufnagel from Dysrhythmia, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's welcome. It's like our pleasure. First thing that we always ask, like, do you have any kind of band shirt, merch, your own band, your own project, somebody else's, that you would like to pluck right here, right now?
Um, well, I just picked up some things for Bandcamp Friday last week.
So what did you pick?
Some new music some new records I really am enjoying. Um, One of them is by this clarinetist. Maybe you know him. His name's Jeremiah Zimmerman. He's
No, but I'll write it
he's
down.
here in New York. Yeah, he plays with Toby Driver and Blood Mist, which is one of Toby's.
That's where I heard the name. I was like,
Yeah,
yes.
it's a great new solo record out that I picked up. This other electronic artist, Scottish electronic artist, who I just came across completely randomly, um, named Narc Artifacts or something like that. Um, and Yeah, just super hyper produced, almost like sound designy, crazy electronic stuff. I find stuff like that kind of inspiring recently for even Dysrhythmia, you know. Um, yeah. What else? And then yeah, Dysrhythmia is gonna have a new record out next month, and it's already up for pre-order on our Bandcamp, so
Yeah,
people can check that out. Yeah, we'll probably get some shirts made later this year,
cool.
and hasn't really been announced yet, but we're gonna do like a week of shows in early October, just kind of down the east coast of the U.S.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before anybody asks, I also always pluck a band, and the band that I want to pluck today is Chetpile. Awesome band, Oklahoma noise rock, and one of the best shows that I've seen at Roadburn last year. And as we're dropping a few more bands, I also dropped one more. Constellation Records has this great free jazz meets conscious rap project called FYEAR. F year, however you want to call it, out. If you want to know more about it, you can also just go back a few weeks into our archive. We have a very good interview with them. So you first should check out the music in general. And if you want to know more, check out the interview. Kevin, because of your name, I have to ask, how good is your German?
I took French in high school, so I wish I studied German. I don't know that much German. Yeah.
But you have German roots, right? Because
I do.
Hufnagel,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is,
yeah. My last name for sure is
yeah.
German. With
And
one.
how do you pronounce it? Because in German it would be Hufnagel, but I'm very
Right, right.
sure Americans don't pronounce it that way, right?
They say Hufnagel here, but yeah, every time I go to Germany, and especially when I'm going through, customs or whatever, they're like, oh, Hufnagel,
Yeah,
when they see the
Hufnagel.
passport.
Yeah, it is. So Dysrhythmia has a new record out in June, digitally, and later on this year, also physically. And of course, we got to talk about that. Kevin, 25 years of Dysrhythmia.
Yeah.
How does it feel? I mean, like the Canadians still have the Montreal Canadiens, still have not won a hockey championship. Many of the old fellas that you started with are not around anymore. How does it feel for you 25 years in?
I mean, it doesn't feel that long, but yeah, it's insane. It's like almost half my life. But I'm really grateful, still be doing it. Still with the same drummer, we switched bass players, around 2005. But yeah, we're a really tight unit. We're great friends. We write music that we love all together, so it's like, why stop, I mean, in the past, I had moments where I was wondering, if the band would continue, mainly just because of, I sometimes get writer's block after a record, and really kind of not sure where to go, and it would take me like a year just to kind of get any kind of like new song idea happening, so. But then, it's like once you write the first new song and then I hear what the other guys add to it, it's just like then I'm super inspired again, and then before you know it, we got another record.
Would you say that all the other projects that you have done throughout the years, Sabbath Assembly, Vaura, Veldune, Gorguts, would you say that that also was a good thing for dysrhythmia in general? Because I do not want to say what you expect is what you get. No, I don't want to say that. But dysrhythmia has a very clear character. Would you say that in that sense the projects were good because dysrhythmia itself never frizzled out into something that it shouldn't be?
Well, yeah, I think having the multiple projects going, I don't really like necessarily even seek out all these multiple projects. I sort of just, I meet people and they ask me to collaborate with them, and I do, and then I love the music, and then it just turns into a new band. um, but I think it's kept Dysrhythmia feeling fresh, the whole time too, because I have these other outlets. Like, if I'm stuck with Dysrhythmia stuff, I'll just work on something for one of the other bands, and then I think honestly, I think I've been influenced by what I do with some of my other bands for Dysrhythmia stuff too. And I think ultimately it's been a good thing having all these different projects going at the same time.
It was funny how you described it. You meet new people and they ask you, okay, let's do something together. Are you one of those persons who finds it hard to say no?
Yeah, sometimes, but yeah, because I mean, I've just been really fortunate to kind of just, especially here in New York, there's just so many amazing artists and musicians around here, and yeah, it is hard to turn things down sometimes, but you can't let your other projects suffer, by spreading yourself too thin. So I think I'm better about that nowadays than I used to be. Yeah, not trying to take on too much at the same time.
Yes, that's the guy who still has like a handful of projects running at the same time, right? Okay.
Yeah, but not all of them are super active all
Yeah,
at the
that's
same.
true. That's true. Yeah. Well, before anybody is wondering whether I ask us something about the other stuff, yes, I will later on. Don't worry. Let's first stick to the new Dysrhythmia album. What struck me about it, so we have 7 songs, more or less half an hour running time. And what I asked myself was, is it just my perception, or is there a big, intense, and well laid out struggle between reduction and expansion? Because on the one hand, we have very reduced songs, not meandering out. And at the same time, there are songs that really take their time, that build up a little bit more. So it was like reduction versus expansion. Is that something that came consciously?
Well, I do think like album order is really important, and probably, maybe your perception of that has to do with kind of the way we kind of like organize
definitely.
the songs,
Definitely.
Yeah, I think so much.
For example, the last track, Light from the Zenith, that was one of those tracks where I felt like, okay, here they really take their time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why we kind of put it last. It just really feels like an outro, or sort of like a wrapping everything up, or sort of an introspection from everything you just experienced or something. Yeah. I mean, the writing process for this record was really different than any of the other ones. With this is our 9th full length now, so every time I do something to make it different from the last record, whether it's like changing the tunings completely on my guitar, or just using different gear, or this time it was kind of just changed the writing process up a little bit. Usually, like on a lot of the past records, it wasn't just me writing all the songs. Colin would contribute things. In the early days, our old bass player would contribute songs. This time I kind of wrote all the material and presented it to the band, and of course Colin wrote his own parts. But the thing that was different this time was I started with drum ideas, and my drummer, who's amazing and whose creative input I really value, he was cool with me kind of like giving him ideas, and so I kind of just really ran with it, and I really had no idea what I was doing, honestly. I learned quick how to write for drums, because at first I was writing stuff that was just impossible. I didn't realize how impossible, the parts I was writing were for him to play, so I had to simplify some things. But I found it really inspiring just to kind of start with just drum grooves, and kind of just let that play, and then I would just kind of, play guitar over it until I had something I liked, and it was fun because it made me kind of play guitar, maybe with more space or something, you know.
Mhm.
Sometimes when I sit down with just a guitar to write a song, you know, you get really kind of like indulgent sometimes, you know, and just feel like you got to fill up all the space, you know, and it's kind of cool when if you start with a drum group that's doing something really interesting and really like engaging to listen to. It kind of makes
Mhm.
me feel like I don't have to do all this crazy stuff
Mhm.
over it. You know, it's like I can let the drums breathe and then I can play more sparsely on top of that. And so yeah, I think there's more space maybe. I mean, it's still pretty dense sounding music, but I think there's a little bit more space this time in the material.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that you mentioned the track order
Mm,
because I just thought about it, and yes, you're right. When you listen to the opening title track of a record,
mm.
um, it is of course something totally different than the last track because
Yeah,
the first one, the title track, is it's not a punch in the face, but it's like, okay, I'm here.
yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
good friend that you haven't seen in a long while, and he comes to you
mm.
and like, here.
Yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
like, yes, yes,
Mm,
that's something that I wanted to hear.
mm,
And then you have light from the center, and also in between you have no breath
After beauty.
after beauty.
Yeah, yeah.
And the order is very interesting.
Mm,
How long does it take you to figure out the right order, or
mm.
does it already come during the writing process?
No, it definitely doesn't come during the writing process. It's interesting. I've talked to some other people that the song order in which you hear on the finished record is sometimes the order in which they wrote the song. So like the oldest song is first, kind
Mhm.
of thing. Some people do
Yeah.
that. I've yeah, I don't know. I never really know what the order is going to be until pretty much
Mhm.
everything's written, and then I just sort of play around with demo versions we have of the songs, kind of just you know in a playlist, just kind of moving them around a bit. Um, you know, and sometimes I ask my you know my bandmates advice too, like what do they think to like this order, and um, yeah. So I don't. It took a while to put that song order together, actually. Also on this record we have songs without bass, like you know Colin plays guitar instead of
Mhm.
bass on 3 out of the 7 songs. So that was something else too. You know, we don't have like all 3 of those songs in a row or something. When I kind of split it up,
Yeah.
the guitar songs, the bass songs, you know, kind of
Yeah,
split
because
that up.
otherwise, if they're following each other, then it's like kind of like a redundant thing, right?
Um, I don't even know how much people would even maybe notice. I mean, unless
Hmm.
they were really listening. But I don't know. Maybe it's just like a psychological thing or something. I just felt like I had to split it up. Um, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of different like I guess factors involved. But it's so funny because I don't know who knows if any. I mean, a lot of people just kind of skip around or like I even worry sometimes when people download the record they're not gonna get it in the right order or whatever, you know, and they're gonna listen to it the songs in the wrong order and because they're really arranged to kind of just be experienced all in one
Hmm.
sitting in the end. Yeah.
I mean, like something that speaks for your order is your own attention and
Mm.
intention, what you wanted to say with it. But of course, as it's instrumental music, there is not that one red line, that one narrative going through it, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
but something that is obvious and that maybe also for everybody out there, as soon as you can listen to the tracks, first listen to it in the chronological order and don't go, okay, which track has been played over and over again on the web.
Mm.
Because that progression from uh, a little bit more reduced to vast and
Mm.
expansive, that is very interesting. Also interesting, 7 tracks, 30 minutes. It's one of the shorter Dysrhythmia records.
Well, not
It's
really
it's not
actually.
overly short. It's not, but it's one of the shorter ones, if I remember
Yeah, I,
correctly.
I think I mean starting with Psychic Maps, that's like a 33-minute record. Um, only 6 songs, and then Veil of Control 2016, that was 6 songs and around the same time. We kind of I like I usually like our records not to be more than like 35 or 40 minutes because I just feel like it's a lot of kind of
Mhm.
information and it's better, just that amount of time
Yeah.
is enough. You know what I mean? And hopefully, I mean, I'm really hoping too with the new one that people want to kind of just listen to it again after it's over too.
Well,
Like.
yeah, it had the effect on me, but I listened to it
Mhm.
3 times in a row once. So
Mhm.
yeah, it works.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, no, but I know what you mean. It's like 30 minutes, and again, you get a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, like, of course, in being a trio with Colin, Jeff, and you, I mean, like, you all are very well versed and experienced musicians, each with your own skill set. Of course, there is a lot to take in. Um, but, and that is something that I always loved about Dysrhythmia. Um, I have never had the feeling as if there are either three guys trying to show off.
Mhm.
That's not your thing, if
Mhm.
I take it correctly. And
Mhm.
second, you are not trying to overpower the audience. They should still be able to take it all in and digest it all.
Um, well, yeah, the first thing you said for sure. Yeah, I never wanted the band to kind of be uh, where someone's like standing
You're
on
not
above.
Dream Theater.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not these, there's no extended solo sections or anything like that. It's more just, yeah, just the three of us kind of all equal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Complementing each other's playing. Um, yeah, and I don't know. I guess whether our music's like overwhelming the listener or not. I think it just depends on the listener. I think some people that are into really extreme, crazy experimental music will probably find us pretty easy to listen to. Someone who's never heard anything like our band would probably just wouldn't be able to handle all that dissonance and all that stuff. So I think it really just depends on the listener.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, most people who listen to our interviews, they usually don't like BTS slash mainstream pop stuff. But
Mm.
we all have like our main niche in which we are living in. But Dysrhythmia is one of those bands which I think a lot of people can agree on because it is, I don't want to say accessible. That might be a wrong word, but
Mm.
it's something that you can get into in a way.
I think so. Hopefully, I'm not trying to make our music accessible, obviously, but I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, we never really set out to be the most like, extreme and experimental band ever. We could go a lot further in that direction if we wanted to,
Yeah,
but I don't know. I just kind of write what I just think is interesting and well written and has some feeling to it too.
that's a very good point. It is never sterile. It's never overly clean. That is definitely something.
Yeah, we don't record to a click track.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Colin,
if you have Jeff, why would you need a click track?
we only used one once. That was on the previous record, Terminal Threshold. There was one song. It was the first time ever where we had to use a click only because there were drum overdubs. It was a song called Twin Stalkers, and actually that I was talking earlier about how I wrote a lot with drum ideas first for this newest record. I guess I started with that approach for one song from the previous record, and I liked how much it came out. That's why I kind of decided to kind of take it further. But yeah, that song from the last record called Twin Stalkers, we had to just so it would be super tight. We kind of had to do that one to a click. But yeah, otherwise we've never recorded to a click. So yeah, things speed up and. Jeff and Colin keep all their live takes. I can usually go back in and kind of retrack my guitars, but yeah, I think it still retains a lot of that. Sounds like
So
people
when,
playing, and sometimes it sounds like things could go off the rails at any moment. um,
yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. When you go into the studio, I mean,
mm.
like, you have the luxury of having a pretty decent producer in your band.
Yeah, I mean we're really
How much of her stuff is spontaneous decision in the studio, or is it like
mm.
already so well crafted that you just get it done?
Well, we spent a lot of time rehearsing these songs, like 2 or 3 years, trying to get them as tight as possible. But it's so funny because even still, we're still making changes at the last minute. In fact, this time in the studio, I recorded pretty much the entire tracking session.
Mhm.
So I have like 10 or 15 hours of footage of us in the studio, and I was going through some of it recently, and it was interesting. I kind of forgot that we while recording, we might realize like one little thing isn't working, and we would just change that one little thing on the spot, and then that's just what. It's so weird how you can rehearse a record for like 2 or 3 years, and then as you're recording, just change something. It wasn't anything major at all. It would literally be like hit that cymbal instead of that cymbal, or like some orchestration thing usually. But guitar wise, a lot of spontaneous ideas happen on the spot. Those are my favorite moments in the studio when I'm listening back to a song I've heard 100 times, and then I'm like, wait, now I hear something new that could happen right there, and I just like, what could it be? And I just pick up a guitar and it's like, how about that? And it's just on the record, and then that's like my favorite part of the album. Um, so I love when I love that kind of the spontaneity. Even though we're really well rehearsed, there's still a lot of spontaneity that happens in the studio.
So then when you go into a studio and, when you record everything, how long is it from that moment to the moment where you send your stuff to the master, to the mastering and everything?
Well, yeah, Colin actually also does the mastering, so it's kind of like mixing, recording, mastering. Yeah, it's all just kind of done there in his studio. But yeah, it usually takes us like 2 weeks total, beginning to end, to kind of get everything. Usually 2 or 3 days for tracking, and then for guitars, usually like 3 days, I guess, to do everything I want to do. Then mixing, Colin does a lot of the mixing by himself without us there, so I'm not really sure how many hours he spends, but about a couple days. Yeah, and then this time with the mastering, the first draft sounded great. Some of it in the past, with mastering, you get like a rough draft, and then you keep tweaking things 2 or 3 times or more. This time, the first master he sent over, Jeff and I were just like, I don't hear anything wrong with this. Sounds great. So we worked pretty quickly this time. It wasn't. It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was one of the harder records to make. There's been other records in the past that I found way more difficult to make than this one.
I understand, but then there is a certain, I don't want to say easiness, but there is a certain feel to the record that I heard it and I was like, okay, these are three guys that, first of all, really enjoy playing together, and this time it's like click, 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 everything's nice and fine. That's audible. Maybe is that also something where you still like, okay, that's like the effect of 25 years?
Well, yeah. You would hope, playing with people that long that yeah, we are. I mean, we know each other's playing really well. And yeah, that's why we lock in so tightly. And being that I was kind of writing more drum ideas this time for Jeff, it did take him a while to get comfortable with that stuff. I was definitely, being that I'm a guitar player, not a drummer, I'm writing things that are like, he tells me like a drummer wouldn't write something like this, But then I think that's why he finds it kind of interesting to try and learn, because it's not something he would have thought to do, So I think that's why it also took a while to get these songs together. Is I just wanted to make sure that he was comfortable playing these parts and it still felt natural to him, because I didn't want my parts to hold him back and make him feel like I didn't want what am I trying to say? Being that I wrote stuff on drum machine, I didn't want it to sound like drum machine. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like too rigid. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, it also has for him to, as you say, it has to feel organically. It should not feel as if, okay, I have to follow the drum track over and over. I have to put my own stuff in there. Yeah.
And he did. He put, he put a lot of his own voice in there too, and changed fills and reorchestrated things. So yeah. It's always very collaborative, no matter who's kind of started off the song. Everyone kind of is an equal contributor.
Yeah, I think that's also very important, right? To have like a democratic band process. Yeah. something that also is, of course, valuable for every band is if you not only have your own producer in the band, but if you also are running your own label. Because as we've said, the digital release at the beginning of June will be through Night Float Recordings, your own label. Is like creative control something that is important to you?
Well, we've been lucky even with all the labels we've ever been on, Relapse, Profound Lore, any of those labels. They were never telling us what to do musically, so we never had that problem. So I don't know if it's so much creative control, maybe it's more just like wanting to just own the rights to our own music and stuff like that, and just having more ownership over our own music, really.
Literally, right? Ownership.
Yeah.
By the way, that is also something that I already wanted to clue up in one of the earlier interviews that we did this year. A lot of people have some kind of negative feeling about Relapse because Relapse is huge. I mean, like, we gotta admit that, right? A band that had Neurosis, Baroness, now Amen Ra. It's just a huge label. But, and that is something that everybody should know and should also feel, Relapse is a really good label for bands. I mean, I've never heard bands really complain about Relapse. It's just a well-run label.
Yeah, I mean, I have really, it's been so long since we've been on the label, and a lot of the staff has changed over there and stuff like that. But yeah, back in the day when we were on the label and stuff, I was also working there for a couple of years. It's kind of funny. I was working in the promo department for a few years while Dysrhythmia was also on the label. And it was a good job for me because I'd still have a job when I came back from tour, because they wanted me to tour too, to help promote the record. So,
of course.
Yeah. And yeah, they've always been a really interesting label as far as like what they put out. It's still pretty diverse, and I've always thought that it was cool that they had I don't think it exists anymore, but their sub label release, that put out more like ambient stuff, I always thought that was cool.
Yeah, or also some of the records they released last year. I mean, they released The Keening, the new project by Rebecca Vernon from Sub Rosa, which is great, but at first you wouldn't think that is on Relapse, just like many people wouldn't think that Myrkur is on Relapse. But it somehow always fits.
Yeah. They definitely have they definitely mix it up, what they don't stick to like any one subgenre of metal, that's for sure.
Is that also important for you, being your own boss? If you take on new bands, like,
I'm not. Yeah,
open?
I mean, my like label is just something I just use for just my own stuff. I don't know if I'll ever put out anyone else's releases necessarily. It's just a kind of a vehicle for my own stuff, mostly my solo stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, however, but we both know that if like a band comes around where you're like 1,000% sure, okay, I love this band and I love that record, and they're small, I mean, I'm very sure you would also say, okay, let's do a run of like 300, right?
Who knows? I don't know if I would have the time to deal with that
yeah.
kind of thing right now. Maybe when I'm older. I don't know. Yeah.
Something that I also wanted to know is you have a very, very cool artwork for the new record by Victor Timofeyev.
Yeah.
How did that come together? And tell me, I've been looking at that cover and I have been thinking, okay, what does it remind me of? It reminds me of something and I cannot put my finger on it. But first of all, how did that work come together?
Well, it's a pre-existing piece of his. Basically, it's always, I have to admit, it's always really hard to find an album cover every time we finish a Dysrhythmia record. Never that hard to kind of find an album title. In fact, sometimes I have the titles like already like in mind years before we actually record it, But finding a cover imagery or just knowing what to do, it's always challenging. And yeah, it took us months and months to kind of finally agree on something and just find someone whose work really I thought really complemented the vibe of the record. And so Victor's an artist that Colin already knew. He did an original piece for one of Colin's, like he did like a duo record with it was him and his now ex-wife have like a record they put out. And anyway, Victor did the cover for that, and I always liked that cover. And so after like 6 months of kind of like searching around for other artists, I thought of him. You know, I was like, oh, Colin, can you give me Victor's info? And he did. And he's actually lives here in Brooklyn. I still have never met him in person. But I reached out to him, and he was already, you know, familiar with us, and was excited about it. And he could have done an original, you know, work for us, but he said he was really busy at the time, and it might take months, you know, and all this stuff. And but I found that one piece that we ended up using for the cover, and I asked him, you know, can we license this from you, you know, or whatever? Can I pay some money to let us use this, you know? And he said sure. So he sent over the high res version, and we did kind of you know, we had to crop things, and I also kind of colorized it a little bit. It's kind of it doesn't originally have kind of all that bluish hue to it, but and he was cool with that, you know, me doing that. So but yeah, you know, gotten a lot of good feedback already on the way the record looks and everything. I actually have the CD right here. Just got this.
Yeah, I'm still thinking what it reminds me of. I think there is a Screaming Trees record which has a very similar
Oh, I think I know
color palette.
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up.
Mm-hmm.
You have been talking about record titles that you have already had before recording.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same with song titles that you already have them in your mind?
Yeah. I always keep a log of possible song titles. I'm just always hearing or reading things or thinking of weird things that you know, I'm just like, oh, that could be a title, and I have like a whole list, you know, and yeah, so I like the feeling of having like a piece of music and already knowing what the title is, and not just calling it like song one for like 3 years.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I know. I can see that.
Yeah.
It also, I mean, I go back to that song over and over again, but with Light from the Senate,
Mm-hmm.
it really is like you have that feeling of light coming up from above somewhere.
Yeah, I really, you know, and actually, you know, sometimes, I mean, I arrive at song titles all different ways. There's kind of no one way I kind of come up with song titles. You know, sometimes it is just something I'll tell you the story behind No Breath After Beauty, for instance. Like that was something I heard someone say. I was doing this gig a couple of years ago where I played classical guitar with a choir, and the day of the performance, we had like a rehearsal before doors, and we're playing through the pieces, and there was the word beauty that the choir had to sing, and they sing the word, and then some people in the choir, for the next word, it was like silent, and then they went, you hear this like audible breath, and the choir, the choral director was, no breath after beauty. She just like shouted. And I already had that song, you know, written at the time, and then she said that, and I was like, oh, that, I don't know, for some reason that just stuck with me, and I was like, well, now I have a title for that song that I just wrote that it fits to me, you know, somehow. Other times, you know, I just listen back to the song, and yeah, just the song makes me imagine things, and that's how I arrive at the titles.
So you're keeping like a little black book with song titles.
Yeah, totally.
Can you pinpoint any specific influences on your writing for this record?
This record? I mean, I think the same influences that we've always had are still there, you know. Are you asking like maybe new influences or something? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I mean, there's got to be. I just don't listen to as much. I am trying to change this, like listen to more, check out more newer music, you know, and not just be stuck listening to the same old stuff I always do. But there's still so much old music from the past that I have still never heard that I'm still like, you know, finding. So it's just hard to keep up with everything. But Yeah, influences. I don't know. I really felt there's no like particular bands or anything I can say like this band really
Mhm.
influenced this record or whatever. Um, um, Man, yeah, I'll have to think about that. I don't know.
No problem. Something that just struck me when you were talking about music from the past.
Mm.
Um, are you one of those metal guys who also can sit down and really enjoy classical music? Because I have one conductor in my head where I select, or composer, one composer where I'm like, oh, that might be something that Kevin is into.
Which one?
Bach.
Oh, Bach. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in high school like studying classical guitar, and I continued taking lessons in college for it as well. And so yeah, played decent amount of Bach stuff. Yeah, I mean, classical music
Or
was
as your ancestors would say, Bach.
yeah. um, yeah, classical music was probably the first music I ever heard. You know, 'cause my mom listened to it around the house. And yeah, like the Peer Gynt Suite
Mm-hmm.
by Grieg. You know, that was definitely. I have a very vivid memory of hearing
Mm-hmm.
that piece. You know, in particular, in the Hall of the Mountain King. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
which is so
yeah, yeah.
metal. You know?
It is.
Yeah,
It actually is. Yes.
it is. um, so yeah, I mean, classical music's always been an influence to me for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because it strikes me, talking to a lot of musicians over the last few years, and when I'm talking to a lot of like um people with a lot of progressive aspects of their music, very often there is this tinge of classical music in it. And when I listen to Dysrhythmia, I very often have a feeling as if, okay, that could be something that composer XYZ has written or would have written if he had had the technical possibilities to it.
Yeah, if they had those
Um,
instruments back then, you know, they probably would have written, yeah, maybe
yeah.
written music like this. Really.
I mean, like I still say, if Wagner had
Mm.
electric guitars and stuff like that, the guy would have produced metal. I'm 100% sure. I mean, like I probably wouldn't listen to it because of all his anti-Semitism, but musically, yes,
I think it's cool that they
100%
didn't
sure.
have that stuff back then. You know, we hear it instead with you know, strings and piano and choirs and stuff. You know, because I
Yeah.
find it more interesting to be influenced by, you know, obviously things outside your genre and stuff. Like I was saying earlier, and I've been kind of like, yeah, pretty inspired by some of this more experimental, like electronic. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if it's called dance music, but it's got beats to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're very fractured and stuff. Like I said, lately I've been finding that stuff kind of like something inspiring for like maybe. I mean, the next Dysrhythmia is not going to sound like that, but it's kind of cool to be, you know, influenced by something completely opposite of what your band is thought of as, you know,
Yeah,
and then sneak those influences in there and disguise them, you know, like that.
probably. I mean, like a lot of those influences are also probably subconscious, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that it's like your mental memory of stuff that you've listened to. And of course, it will play into whatever you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about whatever you're writing, I will not ask about Sabbath Assembly because everybody should know that the band is not working at the moment anymore. But I would like to ask you about three other of your projects. And we'll go through it alphabetically from last to first.
Okay.
Veldune released a great record in 2022.
Thanks. Mm-hmm.
That we also reviewed on our website, and if everybody wants to know more about it, just check our archives. Uh, is there any hope for a new Veldune record?
Oh yeah. Um, yeah, we have probably almost a full record, you know, by that I mean like 8 songs now or something, written. And it's cool because it's I'm still happy with the way the first record came out, but I'm really excited to record this next one because it feels a little bit more like a real band kind of sound now. Because with the first record, a lot of pretty much all that material was written at first just just Jamie and I, the singer. So Jeff and Johnny, joined kind of after the songs were basically written, and they kind of learned sort of like the ideas I had for them. And then of course, just like with the new Dysrhythmia, I mean, Jeff was welcome to embellish and change things and reorchestrate things. And Johnny did a lot of change a lot of bass things, but still kept the essence of what I wanted. But now we're like a real band, we have band practice with all of us there, even though Jamie lives in Texas, so it's hard to have regular practice with her, but she still, she'll fly over every couple months or something. And it's really, it's really feeling more like a band. And so I think the new material has a little bit more of a energy to it. I don't know, it's got quite as maybe not quite as laid back as the first record. There's still, elements that are carrying over from the first record, but there's definitely some new elements in the new material too that are different from the first record. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that. I don't know when we'll get into the studio, but may hopefully play some more shows later this year.
Yeah. The other project that a lot of people here at Veil of Sound love is Vaura with Toby Driver. Also released a record back in 2022, which interestingly isn't even on the Discogs list for Vaura.
Really?
But how about that? Because I know that Toby is also like a workaholic, and is there anything in the works, or like not at the moment?
Well, it's funny, we actually all got together 3 weeks ago or something, me, Toby, and Josh. Josh was in town. Everyone's kind of in different states now. Toby's up in Connecticut. I'm still here in New York. Our singer's down in Roanoke, Virginia. So it's not like the old days when we were all here in Brooklyn and rehearsing every week. So things just move a little slower now, with that band in particular. But we were talking, and we still love working on music together, So we started kind of brainstorming, kind of like approaches we can take next and stuff. But I wouldn't say there's any new actual songs yet. There's some loose ideas and things, but the plan is to get that band, sort of active again too, this year. Yeah.
By the way, if anybody wants to know a little bit more about Toby Driver, we had an interview with him that came out on December 31st, something like that. So also something for you to check out. And the last band, which interestingly had something out last year, Gorguts. There was this tiny split release with Disincarnate.
Yeah.
That was released last year. So, is there any new material?
You know what? I guess you're the first to know. Yeah, there is actually. Finally. There's like 4 songs at least already. Yeah. Actually, Luke surprised us that we had rehearsal a few weeks ago because we're playing Maryland Death Fest in a few weeks, and we're doing some songs that we've never played live before. Older songs.
Challenging with that band.
Yeah. We're doing I don't know if it doesn't matter. We're doing like Condemned to Obscurity, which is a song we never played. That's my favorite song from our version of Sandy. So it's been cool to kind of go back and learn some of these older songs that I've always liked just as a fan or whatever. So I saw Luke a couple weeks ago, and we were rehearsing the old songs. We also have a new drummer now who I had never actually really met, but he was fantastic and really nice guy. So I have a good feeling about how all that's going to go. And so I asked Luke, I was like, do you have any riffs or anything? And he's like, yeah, I got some riffs. I don't know if they're any good. They're not really like organized or whatever. And I was like, well, let me just hear them, And then, we go into where we were rehearsing at Colin's studio. We go into kind of the main control room area where Colin's computer is, and he brings up his iTunes, and I see like Luke has his there's 4 tracks and they're labeled riff 1, 2, 3, 4. But then I noticed before he even hits play that the timestamps say 6 minutes, 7 minutes. I'm like,
yeah, it's not one riff, right? It's like, okay, that's a song.
Yeah, and he hits play, and then it's like, I'm just like, what? And it's all he's got the drums all laid out, and they're pretty much fully finished songs. I mean, we have room to write our own parts to it, but yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like his guitar and then drum programming ideas. But yeah, I was stoked, man. I was like, oh, great, and yeah. So after MDF this month, we're going to only focus on writing and finishing up the material for the next record.
You
We'll spend
do
the whole
know
record
that
doing that.
you do know that you now incited a lot of wet dreams in our audience, right?
No, people have been asking that question for a while, man, and I've been asking that question too. Like, when are we gonna start writing another record? But yeah, it's definitely happening now. I can say that with 100%
Wow.
confidence. Yeah.
That is a very good chance for me to lead into the last part of every Veil of Sound interview. It's always the infamous quickfire round. You'll get two alternatives and have to choose from that.
Yeah.
And I'll make it easy for you in a way. I'll give you two Gorguts records, pre-Hufnagel.
Okay.
And you choose which one you like more, Obscura or Erosion of Sanity.
Well, Obscura, because that's the one that kind of really made me a fan of the band. Because I have a pretty vivid memory of buying that record and then putting it on for the first time and hearing the song Obscura and just being just confused and blown away, and a lot of different feelings all at the same time when I first put that record on. So that record had a bigger impact on me. So I have to choose that one. Yeah.
Something that I took because of Dysrhythmia's gig history. The first gig, as far as rumor has it, the first gig you ever played was with Discordance Axis.
Yeah.
So which Discordance Axis would you rather listen to right now? Inalienable Dreamless or Juhu?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've listened to either of those ones, but probably Inalienable Dreamless.
Yeah, I also always stumble about that word. Inalienable. Yeah. Okay. Something that we could connect to both bands, to Gorguts and Discordance Axis, is a question that often comes up when people talk about progressive death metal or tech death metal, or anything in that realm. What to you is more important when listening to a record from that soundscape or soundverse, or however you want to call it? The power behind the riff or the finesse in everything that the song has?
Power is more important than finesse, maybe.
Okay. Can you say why?
I mean, I'm kind of bored by overly clean and perfect music, like a lot of this, what they're calling tech death metal now. I find a little too, it just might as well just be listening to a guitar profile. It's too MIDI sounding or too perfect, and it's too sterile. This is my taste.
Would you say it has? Would you say that it doesn't have enough grit?
Yeah, I just like to hear a little more dirt and things. This probably just makes me sound like an old man, but like I do like the sound of those earlier '90s death metal records. Like Atheist, Unquestionable Presence. Which you can tell they didn't record that to a click track. I mean, the drummer speeds up all over the place. But I like it. It makes things like really exciting. To me, it just keeps me more engaged. I don't tune out the same way I might when I'm listening to like something more modern where everything is just on the grid the whole time.
When we're talking about death metal records from the late 80s, early 90s, there is that one question that always reminds me of Stones versus Beatles. And I will ask you the same question: Morbid Angel versus Death.
That's a tough one.
I know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's tough. I don't know. To me, Morbid Angel is definitely more of an extreme band than Death. Like listening to Death now, even the early Death when they were more brutal or whatever and less proggy, still just sounds really catchy to me. Just kind of like, I don't want to call it like pop music, but it is. It's like verses, choruses, catchy riffs, catchy grooves. I don't know. It's like, whereas Morbid Angels is like a little bit more like, it's to me it's more dark and experimental and all that stuff, you know. So it's kind of hard to compare. Yeah, but
To me, Morbid
uh,
Angel was always like the deaf version of Exodus. Always a little bit more gritty, always a little bit more grimy. Yeah.
yeah, you know, just I mean, just the guitar solos, for instance, you know, like in Death, the guitar solos are, you know, pretty melodic, you know, and I love all the, like, Chuck's playing was great, and I love, of course, all the different lead guitarists he had
Yeah.
over the years on all those records. But then you listen to like Trey from Morbid Angel, you know, it's just the opposite end of the spectrum. But I love his playing too, you know, it's just chaotic and just like, you know, kind of like not even in time with the tempo of the song,
Yeah, yeah.
but you know,
It's
it
like
creates a
his
certain,
very own thing.
yeah, and it creates a certain, you know, tension and intensity, you know, that's so opposite of like a well constructed phrased guitar solo, which I also
Mhm.
love. So, you know, it's hard for me to compare. That's kind of apples and oranges to me, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you want to eat an orange, sometimes you want to eat an apple, right?
Mhm.
Let's step back a little bit in time.
Mhm.
Let's go to the 70s. And I have mentioned, you know, the progginess and stuff like that. And you have been working a lot with guitar synth on the new record, a lot of keys, and I like that a lot. And it reminded me in some strange ways of a little bit of 70s prog rock.
Mhm.
I don't know why. It had just a certain floatiness,
Huh?
which I really like. And so I'll give you uh, Emerson, Lake and Palmer versus Yes.
I would have to go with Yes.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm also just more familiar with their catalog in general than Emerson Lake and
Yeah,
Palmer.
I had imagined that.
Yeah, yeah. But
Another
also,
couple. Yeah, you go first.
I was gonna say, but also like as far as, yeah, Steve Howe, for instance, I think, you know, was an amazing guitar player. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely
It's a
lean with.
wizard, right? That guy is just nearly unbeatable.
Also, I'll just
Another,
mention the guitar synth stuff on the new record. That's actually Colin. So the stuff that you hear that sounds like synthesizers is
yeah.
those are only on the songs where Colin plays guitar instead of bass. Although actually, the Light from the Zenith song has you know, those synth sounds come back again.
Yeah.
That's actually Colin doing it on bass. And the thing that's creating all those synth type sounds is actually just a guitar pedal, you
Mhm.
know. So it's just like a guitar synth pedal, and on some of the songs he's playing guitar through it, and on that one song he's actually playing bass through it. So there's
Okay.
actually no keyboards on the record. That's all just that guitar pedal. It's a
Yeah.
really great pedal. I used it a little bit on the Veldune record. I also used like this Mellotron's kind of synth pedal too for just so I played the parts on guitar, but it sounds like, yeah, it sounds like synths. Yeah.
And another prog rock
Mhm.
couple. To me, there is only one answer for that, but I don't know what you will choose. Genesis versus Jethro Tull.
Genesis.
Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But only with Collins behind the mic and Gabriel in front. All of the other stuff is not,
Mhm.
I don't care. Um, you have been talking about some influence of electronic music on yourself. And
Mhm.
I'm very sure we both agree that one of the most important electronic artists of one of the most important electronic artists of the last 20, 30 years is FX Twin.
Mhm.
So I'll give you two of his records. Select Ambient Works versus Drux.
You know, I don't really know his. I don't have either of those records,
Okay.
so I don't. I can't even compare because I don't know. I've heard bits of Select Ambient Works, you know, over the years,
Mhm.
but I don't. I never actually bought any of his albums actually, so um, I can't. I couldn't pick one, I guess.
Doesn't matter. Honesty is always appreciated.
Mhm.
And you have been mentioning Brooklyn so often. I'll give you two New York related questions.
Okay.
First of all,
Mhm.
which New York slash New Jersey songwriter do you like more?
Mhm.
Bruce Springsteen versus Billy Joel.
I mean, I heard both those artists so much growing up, especially because I grew up in, you know, my family's from New York, but I also lived in Jersey throughout my middle school years. So I heard a lot of Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen, but especially Billy Joel. That seemed to be an artist that like my dad and all his sisters just loved and always listened to. it's weird. I kind of, I saw, and I think Billy Joel was my first non-metal arena concert that I saw
Mhm.
ever. I do like some of his songs actually.
Mhm.
I mean, Springsteen. I guess I probably would choose Springsteen though, because I like that. I really like that album, Nebraska, that he did.
Mhm.
So to me, he kind of seemed like a more sort of serious artist than Billy Joel. And he's still been. And he kind of never stopped putting out new music. I guess really.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
it's so strange with artists like Billy Joel, where they just kind of they stop so early in their career putting out music, and
Well, I mean, like
I don't know.
he has put out 2 pop singles since 1994. One of them pretty recently, a few months
I saw,
back.
it's funny. I was on vacation when the Grammys were on, and we were in a hotel room, and I saw that he played like a new song on the Grammys.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And he has released 1 or 2 classical music records in between.
Oh, he actually put those out. I remember reading an article where
Yeah, one of them is definitely out. I know that one.
Okay.
But it's, again, something that has never been promoted a lot. Also because it just doesn't sell. It's like nobody wants to hear him play classical music that he composed himself. Fine.
Yeah.
Even I, being a really huge Billy Joel fan, I have to admit, it just doesn't do anything to me.
I always thought his song "Pressure" would make a good for good metal cover. That's
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's got like that keyboard part in it.
Yeah. And Brooklyn. I mean, like, I'll first say a little bit to it. I mean, like, I know it's, again, comparing a little bit of apples to oranges, but which team would you rather watch? The 1950s Brooklyn Giants or the modern Brooklyn Nets?
I don't know. I don't watch sports. Absolutely no no opinion on that at all.
Okay, cool. For me, it would always be.
If you ask me Mets versus Yankees, I mean that because my mom loves baseball, so.
So what would she say?
I would say I follow baseball, but I know a little bit more about baseball maybe.
So what would you say, Mets versus Yankees?
I'd probably just say Mets because that's who my family roots for. Even though actually my dad's side they like the Yankees, so it's always.
Yeah, then I'm on your dad's side.
Yeah. No, I think most people prefer the Yankees probably.
Yeah. Also because the Yankees are now turning into one of those loser stories like the Mets. I mean, like, haven't won anything since 2009. I mean, like, for Yankees measurements and standards, that's like eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Kevin, thanks for all the cool insight into the new record, also into a little bit of Dysrhythmia's history. Enjoy the rest of your day. And for everybody out there, if you like what we do here, just give us a link or give us a follow here on YouTube or follow us on our socials. And Kevin, chance for you for final last words.
Yeah, I hope everyone checks out the new Dysrhythmia record. It's going to be out June 7th. It'll be up on our Bandcamp. It'll be on the streaming services too around then. Yeah, we have CDs available. People can order from us. We'll be doing a week of shows early October. I think October 1st to the 6th or 7th around the East Coast. Hopefully more next year. We really want to get out to the West Coast. Love to get back to Europe. That was actually supposed to happen. And then COVID, kept delaying that over and over. But we actually had a tour booked for 2020, and then
the Sea Monster
kept getting canceled. So maybe one of these days we'll get back over there. I miss it.
Hopefully, would love to see you again on European stages. So enjoy the rest of your day, man, and talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. And take care.